you for joining us this afternoon. Welcome to the team. Now, everyone should have received their letters by now, right, that has welcomed them to the team. The great news is all of you, I checked your my drive this afternoon, all of you have already submitted your syllabus, which is phenomenal. So thank you so much. You guys are wonderful participants so far. So let me go ahead today. Let me just tell you a little bit about our agenda. I'm going to talk roughly for about 20 to 30 minutes, no more than that, on the grant itself, OER in particular, and then the rules of the grant. And then we have a guest speaker here today, one of our former participants. David Anastasiu is going to present his process of going through and adopting OER materials and converting his course. So just to kind of set the context for you. By the way, how many of you saw my presentation with Jennifer Red over the summer? And that's how they ended up in the program. Okay, one, two, a couple of you. All right. So if you may have seen this graph already, I just want to get you thinking about where we're situated in the OER landscape. So there are open educational practices in general. Those practices use open educational resources. And then within those open educational resources is where Affordable Learning Solutions sits here at San Jose State. And you are participating in particular in our team grant, which is also known as AB 798. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. Now, AB 798, otherwise known as the College Textbook Affordability Act of 2015, was legislation that was passed, as you can see here, due to the rising cost of textbooks. So take a look at that. Since 1977, so in the last 40 years, textbooks have risen at more than 1,000%. And we estimate that the cost of books and supplies for students at San Jose State costs roughly $1,900 a year. We know that if a student is in a STEM discipline, right, they're probably going to be paying in excess of $2,000 a year. This is why the California State Legislature was so concerned about doing something that would help students across the state. Affordable Learning Solutions here at San Jose State has been in existence since 2012. And this AB 798 is the most recent iteration of ways to save students money. Now let's talk about the rules of the grant that you've all been accepted into. So, number one, funds cannot be used to create new open educational resources. What do I mean by that? In previous grant opportunities, we actually had faculty and instructors creating and writing their own materials and self-publishing. That is not allowed under this grant, which I think actually is a benefit to you guys. It saves you a lot of time and work. You simply are going to go out and find existing materials and adopt them into your courses. Targeted courses must be implemented in either this semester, fall 2017, or spring 2018. We're kind of bumping up to an important point in the grant life right now, because if we are able to convert all 49 sections that we projected to convert by spring 2018, we have the opportunity to apply for additional funds to run the life of the grant through 2018-2020. So right now we're kind of at a critical juncture. We're really working to make sure that we can apply and get additional money to support students here at San Jose State. Now, one of the very important key things about the grant is the savings to the students must be 30% or more over the current costs of classroom materials. So I know I have a math professor here in the room. This is going to make a lot more sense to you than it does to me, I will admit. But for example, if you use a $90 textbook and a $30 online homework system, that's a total cost of $120 to your students. If you switch to a free open textbook, that would be a 75% savings, right? Because we're no longer paying for the $90 textbook. But if you use a $30 textbook and a $10 workbook for a total cost of students of $40, and you simply switch to a free workbook, that would only be a 25% savings because you're only lopping off the $10 workbook. Therefore, this would not meet the criteria of the grant. Additional rules, targeted courses must use currently existing OER that are free, licensed for acceptable use by students and faculty, that are accessible, and as well as have a print version available. Now, the print version usually brings up a lot of questions for faculty. Print version means that we could have something available that they could come into the library and print, right? Now, if they come to the library, there will be associated cost because it's 20 cents per page. That is permissible under the grant. Because they're technically getting the material for free, the associated print cost is not affecting the grant in any way. The other question that comes up about materials here is whether it's in copyright. So that's one thing we'll be working closely with you with. Some faculty bring me a list of materials that'll say, I found all my textbooks out online for free, this is fantastic. Except I go and I look at them and they're hosted by someone's personal Google site. Or maybe they're really an illegally uploaded PDF. So those materials we are not going to be able to use. That's why we want to make sure licensed for acceptable use by students and faculty. So that's what we're here to do, support you in this process in identifying these materials. Also, courses that have already made the curricular conversion to OER materials are not eligible for this grant. This does not apply to any of you, but we do have some faculty on campus that came to us, particularly after the webinar this summer, and said, I'm already using OER and I didn't even know it. Can I apply for the grant? Unfortunately, we would have nothing to compare that to, right? Their syllabus would technically be zero cost to students because they have already adopted OER materials. So none of you are affected by this particular rule, but we do want to let you know that those, if you're thinking about future course conversion, those classes would need to have an associated cost before and then have a zero or very low cost after. Now, what counts as open educational resource? There are a variety of materials that you can include. They are not limited to full courses, course materials, modules, textbooks, faculty-created content, including some classroom notes faculty have posted that are allowed to be freely shared with others, streaming videos, tests, software, and any other tools, materials, or techniques used to support access to knowledge. In fact, one of the very first OER textbooks that was really adopted by, I think, majority of community colleges is actually a math book, Statistics. It's written by a local professor. She's very well known in the OER sphere. So there's a wonderful example of a whole textbook that you can get for free and share with your students. Where do I find OER? The library is actually a great place to start in your OER search. So we purchase and license materials that we offer to our students, right? Databases. We even purchase ebooks and place them on Course Reserve for students to access. We are picking up that cost. We are not passing that cost along to our students. So they technically qualify under the grant terms as being part of the OER area that you can select materials from. Also, Merlot.org. This is something that's been in existence for quite some time through the CSU. And the Cool for Ed website. We'll actually show you this a little bit later. There's a wonderful repository, very searchable. You can actually go in by different domains and disciplines and find materials. And then, of course, we have our library.sjsu.edu ALS site. We have broken down different materials by subject and discipline there as well. If you need help, you can always contact Adriana or myself. Some of you have already been in contact with us. We've already had a few meetings maybe trying to brainstorm, get some ideas about how we can help you in the adoption process. If you need assistance with your course redesign, we are very fortunate and very happy actually to have Elizabeth too joining us this afternoon. Elizabeth is part of our team. She is our accessibility expert, as well as Amy Strage from the Center for Faculty Development. So both, we're very fortunate and very happy to have them as part of our team helping us. So now, what will we need from you moving forward? So you will need to attend an additional workshop. You only need to attend one. We will have them, we've already scheduled them for Tuesday, November 7th or Wednesday, November 8th. They are over the lunch hour because we will be providing lunch for you, so we'll be feeding you. So this is another workshop where we recently redesigned how the second workshop will work. This is really more of a hands-on working session where we'll be assisting you with the conversion process. What we will need from you additionally, we will need to have you submit your revised syllabus to you. This is due at the end of the semester when you've completed your course conversion. So once you have implemented, you've taken your new syllabus, you've taught through the entire semester with that, at the end of that semester, you will need to make sure that you submit that to us. We also will have you complete some course conversion assessment and surveys throughout the course of the semester. So, very interesting probably for you, when will you be awarded the grant money? After you have piloted your redesigned course and provided us an assessment, funds will then be made available to you. We actually do need to update this. The funds are no longer paid directly to your department. The way that works is we actually will use a fund expense transfer. So what happens is, let's say you want to go to a conference, you would pay for the conference through your department, and then the library would transfer funds and wipe that from the books for your department. We do have options as to when we make the funds available to you. For example, if you're concerned about having an entire academic year to use the funds, some faculty have requested that we wait until the start of the fiscal year, so July, and then they would have the entire year to use those funds available to them. Funds can be used for professional development only, meaning you would use those for conference travel, to pay for conferences. We do know of some individuals that are using it to hire student assistants. In our case, we use some of our grant money to actually fund 2 student ambassadors for the library to help us raise awareness among the student population about OER. Yes?
So materials for research is out of bounds for like chemical purchases or consumable equipment?
That actually I think would be permissible.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the question was, can we use the materials for teaching materials such as chemical compounds, things like that? Yes, I believe that would still be permissible. Under the grant, that should not be a problem because it's directly impacting and affecting your teaching. So I think that would be fine. Any other questions about that? Okay. So this is one thing we really want you to think about. Beyond changing your readings, it's not just simply a swap, right? You're not just swapping one particular material for another. You want to think about how you will be teaching these modified materials to your students. Traditional textbooks typically come with glossaries, guiding questions, a lot of ancillaries, test banks. We are aware of that. A few years ago, a lot of OER materials didn't come with these types of supportive materials, so I think it slowed the process for OER adoption. We're finding now there are much greater amounts of information out there, including OER test banks that faculty can have access to. Students may need support in reading and understanding their primary resources, and now you're reading materials that may call for different kinds of discussions and perhaps reading-based in-class activities. But we want to remind you that we're here to help. You can always access us through email, through phone, in person, or now that we have Zoom on campus, when it's working, we can go ahead and schedule something through that as well. Skype too. If you guys want to use good old Skype, we can do that. So as a reminder, we are excited because this is an opportunity for you to rethink the materials that you're using in class. These are new ways to approach students with course content. But more importantly, we're returning the intellectual freedom back to the instructor. We are aware that a lot of instructors purchase a book for their class and then they only assign perhaps 2 or 3 chapters. And then they need to get another book and they'll only assign 2 or 3 chapters from that as well. We're hoping that with this program, you'll be able to craft something together that really fits your needs and the needs of your students so you feel like you aren't costing students $400 a semester and you're only using perhaps 25% of the material. And that's actually it for me, for my part. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, David. Yes?
You're saying if there is something just not very clear. Are we allowed to create our own notes? Because in one of the slides you said faculty created notes, but earlier you said that that's not going to be part of it.
So those would be faculty created notes that are already existing in the OER environment. If you were to actually take your notes and publish them, that wouldn't be part of this grant. So a lot of times in the OER repositories, we will see faculty who have shared their notes. That would qualify as already existing. Does that make sense?
I don't understand it. So am I allowed? I have my notes.
Yes.
Let's assume I have my notes. Am I allowed to give it to them and that's it? That's your OER material or not?
That, you're welcome, of course, to share that, but that wouldn't qualify for the grant as being purely your OER material because technically you created that.
But that saved them buying the book.
Yes, but under this particular grant iteration, the other grants that would have been permissible, but this one they really want you to go out and look for already existing material. Now, if you have perhaps a website of your own or someplace that you like to upload your course notes to that you did maybe 2 years ago, and you can point your students to that, then you could say that's already existing OER material. But if you were in this semester to write your notes and then present them to the students as a substitute for a textbook, it would not qualify for the grant only because that would be considered being authored by you. It would be created by you for the purposes of replacing the textbook in this particular iteration of the grant.
So it has to be something created by someone else, not me.
Correct.
Okay, and then for the library part,
Yes.
How can the library qualify as OER? Do you have then to have like books and online access to the students? Would that qualify?
Yes, that qualifies. All
Yes.
of our online e-resources qualify.
Okay, so if I ask, if I know the book that I want to use but it's expensive and then the library can purchase that book and give them online access, that would qualify?
That would qualify, absolutely. And we actually have done that for faculty. We did that over the summer. I think actually, Melinda, did we do that for you? Did we find the?
Yes.
We did. Okay, so we actually, over the summer, we found her textbook, we purchased it, and made it available to students. So they're already using library materials as OER for this semester. So any other questions?
Just to clarify that point again, so if I made the notes last semester for a class, but then used it for next semester's course, that's okay, but if I wrote them now,
They
it's
would
not
have.
okay for next
They would have to been already existing in an OER repository somewhere. That's really the catch. The catch is that if you were to write them but you never shared them, you never gave permission to have those out there available for others to use, that technically wouldn't be an open educational resource. Does that make sense?
So what counts as a repository?
So let me show you a couple. Yeah. Excellent question. So here's Merlot. This is the repository I was telling you about through the CSU that is searchable. So if you want to go ahead and click here, search Merlot. You can actually search materials. You can browse materials. You could even use an ISBN for a search. You could try keywords. If the materials were already sitting here, then you could go ahead and use them. So this is a sample open educational repository that you have access to. There's OpenStax. There's a variety of repositories out there. We certainly could give you a list that you could go through and look at. Yes?
Okay, so, and those are notes from other faculty across CSU who are sharing their material?
These are actually textbooks.
Those are textbooks?
Mm-hmm.
Some of it's course material too, like MIT OpenCourseWare is on here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some slides and some homework sets and things.
And maybe that's not very related. What's the incentive for the faculty to do that? What's the incentive of someone, an author of a book, to share it for free? Is it just to let people get more access to it, or? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really just people who are proponents of the OER movement really enjoy publishing and sharing their materials. They feel, a lot of people do feel it's a social justice issue. I think in the last few years we've had that discussion. So one thing I didn't mention at the start, that the other thing that we're looking at, particularly here at San Jose State and at the CSU, across all CSUs, is we know that students are facing financial pressures to the point that some of them are not buying their textbooks because they simply can't afford them because they need to eat. So that means they're coming to the class, they haven't read the material, they're not prepared. Perhaps as an instructor you've experienced this where you need to spend time in your classroom going back and getting everybody up to speed because they haven't had a chance to look at the material. So for those that are really OER proponents, they're looking at it as a chance to sort of get out there, to the social justice issue and make it so that all students have access to materials. The great thing about OER is that students will have access on day one, right? If you're using an open educational resource, you don't have to worry about whether the book has arrived in the bookstore. The students will have access to the material on the very first day. So we're hoping, that's one of the things we ask you through the assessment process. Do you find that your students are more prepared when they come to class? Do you find that this is changing your teaching? Are you able to cover more? Are you able to have different discussions with your students? Are your students' grades changing? We don't want to look at individual students, but rather in aggregate. Do you see that now that you're using OER materials, have grades gone up? Have they gone down? Are they staying the same? So that's one of the things about using OER materials. Any other questions? All good questions, by the way. Thank you. Okay, then I guess now I'll turn it over to you.
Hello, everybody. My name is David Anastasiu. I'm from computer engineering, and just wanted, I guess, share with you guys my experience with the team grant, and primarily let you ask questions, and I'll try to answer them as well as I can. So I came in last year. This is my second year at the college, at the university, at San Jose State University. And one of the classes that I was going to teach was Database Systems 1. And I looked at the syllabus that the previous professor was using and found out that they were using a book that literally cost $176 or something like that. And I was mortified. And decided that I wanted to change that. And I also had learned about the team grant through some of the outreach that the library did during orientation and things like that. So I decided to apply for the team grant and change that class. Now, as has been mentioned, one very important thing to note is that it's not as easy as just saying, I'm going to change the book, or and get a different, cheaper book, or I'm going to change, get rid of the book, and just to rely on other materials. It really changes potentially the entire structure of the class, and you have to understand there will be some effort that you need to put in to design the class, but for one, I was going to do that anyway, so I decided it was worth it. As far as what I did to change the class, I decided to get rid of the book altogether. I did use a free book resource, but I used it as reference only, and I didn't actually require readings out of the book per se, but provided links back to different chapter sections of the book related to my material. And other than that, I did two things. One is I made sure that the content of the slides that I used in class was, I wouldn't necessarily say comprehensive, but comprehensive enough that I provided all the content that I expected the students to learn within the slides themselves. And secondly, providing just a set of slides and teaching off the slides and things like that is not going to get the students engaged. So I knew that. So I decided to incorporate activities within the class that had the students work out some of the things that they learned that particular day. So the class was a database systems class. It basically taught the students how to, the concepts of a database system, how to use a database, as well as how to design a database. One of the nice things these days is that there are a lot of different database engines available, and one of them you can actually execute on a normal laptop. You don't need a big, huge database server like you once did. So I literally had students create their own databases on their own laptops using something called Jupyter Notebook and Python and SQLite database systems. So through the combination of that technology, I was able to develop a bunch of different activities, some of them that we did in class, some of them that they did at home, that really integrated with the material that I was teaching through the slides. And throughout all that, also provided some links back to the free textbook that I was putting up as a reference. That's about it. So, any questions? Yes?
What did you find to be the most challenging in the process?
Frankly, I mean, coming up with the right material for the lectures takes a lot of time. But I expected that, so, but it is challenging. And also just making sure to integrate discussion into the class and activities and things like that, so that I'm not just lecturing to students. Yeah, go ahead.
What did you find the most exciting part of adopting OER? What did you like the most?
So being, in a way, forced to do this was what gave me the idea to implement these activities in class activities, and the students really I think learned a lot through those, and I got a lot of really positive feedback from it. So yeah, that was very rewarding. Yes?
Question. So, do you find yourself you have to write a lot of additional supplemental notes to support the book, or also maybe test questions? Or?
Oh yeah. Yes, test questions, exams, and things like that. Yes, that was challenging. I had to write all those by hand from scratch. I mean, I've taught databases before, sort of as a TA. So I had a lot of content that I had made up for previous classes that I assisted with. So I was able to use some of that material. But yeah, there was a lot of time that I had to set up exams, and also I have a policy where I actually create 2 or 3 different versions of each test or quiz, and I mix them around the class so they can't look left and right. So that took even longer, but that's I guess expected time.
So with all the materials you provide, do you find yourself, is that more in Word and PowerPoint or PDF or electronic version or hard copy?
I do everything electronic. I try to stay away from printing stuff for 50 students. So, yeah. Yes.
You're saying that you have to redesign your quizzes.
Yeah.
You cannot use the same thing that you used to use before.
So some of them just refer to different material, though, that I wasn't necessarily
Just
teaching.
the
Yeah.
level of content that you
Yes.
not because you converted to.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Any other question? Yes.
Is it too much work?
Is it too much work? I don't think so. So I was going to do this. The point for me was I'm going to do this work anyway, right? I was going to prepare for this class in order to be successful in it. Yeah, maybe it would have been a little easier if I used that book and I could have just picked questions from the book exercises, and I had the teacher's version of the book with answers to those exercises and things like that. But probably not. I don't know. I wasn't really keen on that book anyway. So I was going to redesign the course anyway. So, yeah.
If you have to redo it again, is there anything you would change? Or what would you change?
For this class, not really. I would do it the same way. I would love to find some more resources with test banks and things like that would potentially save some time. But no, I would do it the same way.
Some of the advices you would offer if everybody were to start, what would they?
Some advice. Definitely, think ahead about how you plan to teach the class, and how, not just the material, not just the textbook, but what are the strategies that you plan to use in the class to deliver the content in a way that the students will actually be able to understand it and retain it and really gain knowledge from it.
Thank you so much.
Sure,
Thank you.
my pleasure.